Going to dive into the exciting world of game development with game developer Matthew Knight. You're now tuned in to Coder Conversations. I'm your host, Kevin.
And I'm Brian.
Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on tonight.
It's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show. You're a game developer. Your primary engine is Unreal 5. Can you tell us a little bit about the games that you develop?
So far, they've mostly just been me practicing and trying to make whatever seems fun. Um, a lot of horror and a lot of RPGs. But lately, I've been trying to just see what I. Lately, I've been focusing less on the specific games and just the roles and what I can learn.
Okay.
Got it. So you're kind of a novice at game development. You're just getting your feet wet with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I graduated from UC Irvine with a degree in game design back in
Nice.
23, and I've been trying to get into the industry, but job market's kind of difficult and
Yeah.
life's
Yeah.
hectic. So it's been on the back burner for a while, but I've been trying to make it more of a primary focus this past year to like relearn a lot of the things that I started to forget after not developing for a while.
Mm.
Sure. So, like, what did your journey to game development look like? Did you start with Unreal Engine 5, or did you start with like Unity or something else? And what language did you start with?
I initially started with Game Maker Studio. That was back when I was still in community college and before, and while I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do,
Okay.
I started using Game Maker Studio to just mess around with it and see how I felt about developing games. The first time I actually got thrown into a project was during one of my first semesters at UCI. I ended up having two classes back to back where they were each of them were project focused, and I ended up learning Unity and Unreal at the same time in both
Oh, wow.
of those. Yeah, it was. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. Which do you prefer out of the two engines?
I would say right now I'm more comfortable with Unity, but I do prefer Unreal in a lot of aspects. Primarily because I've done a lot of level design, and Unreal has a lot of really useful tools and features built in for that kind of work.
Awesome.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about those, like the tools that you prefer in UE5 over Unity? I know you mentioned like level design and anything else.
Um, UE5 has a lot of they have the terrain editor and a lot of just built-in modeling tools, um, such as like things where you can just take the assets and splice them, move them around. Sorry, I'm not doing the best at describing it, but it feels like you have more. From my experience, it seems like you're able to do more with assets in Unreal and make entire levels within the engine. Whereas with Unity, you may need to like build things in like Maya or Blender first before you can bring them into the engine.
So it's kind of an extra step with
Yes.
Unity. Yeah.
And I know UE5, it's probably more powerful overall, especially if you get into C++. Are you doing C++ or are you doing blueprints or a mixture of both?
I've really only done blueprints so far, but I do plan on practicing more C++. It is on the list of things to practice when I get the project in. It's easier for me to learn something when I'm actively working on a project. Right now, I'm working on a project with some friends as a programmer, but it is in Unity, so it's just been a lot of C# practice.
Okay.
Hopefully, once this project's done, I might be able to try and practice C++ in Unreal, or I have a few ideas on messing around with Godot, and I think there's a way to practice C++ in Godot as well.
So, like, when you started with Game Maker and you started developing your first game, on what end did you really want to focus on, like entering the game industry as like an artist or as a programmer or kind of?
Initially it was just programming. Um, but when I transferred to UCI, everyone was there for programming, and we needed someone to help fill out other aspects, other roles. And I play a lot of D&D, and I've developed maps before for like maps and encounters for that before, and that kind of like for the first project I did with Unity. That's why someone asked me to be the level designer for that. And then same semesters, different class, I was working with some of the same people, and they're like, oh, you're already doing the level design in Unity. Why don't you also do the level design in Unreal?
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I've gotten a lot of experience with design, and but I have been like past couple months and the past couple projects I've been working on is more focused on programming.
And what would you say in terms of level design? What is your process like? What does your process look like in both engines?
The process is very similar. It's just sketching out map after map until you find something that starts to work, plan out, or depending on the kind of game, if you need to plan out the story beats and where they are going to appear throughout the map. Once you start to have something you want to feel like you want to go forward with, it's just then gray blocking it out, seeing where you need to adjust. And that usually takes way longer than anything else before you actually start to put in the final assets.
So you said it's called gray blocking?
I've heard different terms like gray blocking, white boxing, essentially just trying to take what you've sketched out and what you've planned and put it into the 3D environment, and just like, instead of having all the fancy arts, it's just like, oh, this bush is just a block, or this tree is just a very tall rectangle. But that's the stand-in for now.
So it's kind of like scaffolding, and then you build the details later. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Okay, so like in terms of level design, I know, for example, Nintendo, they have a certain process. Like, for example, in Mario, when they want to introduce a new concept to you at the beginning of the stage, they have like a short like aspect of the level where they let you play around with the concept without like losing a life. Like, do you have any sort of paradigms you use when you design levels?
Definitely, from what I've learned, and even just in practice, you need to like ways to guide the player's focus and attention without seeming like or making what you want the player to do obvious enough. Like, you can have landmarks and things, but if you don't have a clear path to follow, then the player's not gonna know which direction to go. Like in my senior project that I worked on, we had this big open map, way overscoped, but the starting area for the player, you could see like this town in the distance, and then there was supposed to be this path that leads like around to the back of the town. But in the first couple tests, the path was like too big, not obvious enough. And so instead of following the path, the players just went straight like up the hill. Like, if you've ever played Skyrim, you know how you just tend to just climb over the mountains to just get past, because who wants to follow the path? It's faster to go that way. That's what ended up happening. And you need to just make that more obvious over time.
So out of the projects that you have worked on, what would you say your favorite one is?
My senior project was a lot of fun. That was the one where I like fell in love with Unreal 5 and got to mess around with that one the most.
Okay.
But honestly, I think maybe currently my favorite one is honestly the first one I worked on, which was this little multiplayer horror game called Elevator. And it's we made it back in like what 21 now, and every year during Halloween, it always like spikes in downloads on itch, and it like it finally just this year reached over 10,000 downloads, and the
Oh,
whole team was
wow.
like, wow, that's a lot.
It's impressive.
Especially for I think most of our very first project.
Oh wow!
That's awesome.
Kind of taking it back to level design. So you mentioned like having to design something for the players to focus on and head towards. Like, what are some of the other aspects of design that people don't necessarily realize? Like, I know, for example, most people think you're just making something that looks cool, but in order to make something playable, what are some of the strategies that you use?
Um, level design sometimes can feel kind of like an art where it's like you have to get a lot of practice in it, and it's like different for everybody, but there's a lot of it's really just what you want to do with the game. And level design, the goals is always different depending on what you're trying to do. Like in like a point and click adventure game, you want to make sure like the level is open enough and there's enough space where the player can see everything that might be clickable and important. If you're doing like a game like Call of Duty, third person shooter, you want to make it so that like the different entrances and pathways that the player can take are still obvious enough and like illuminated without so that they don't end up like feeling like they're being blindsided when an opponent just comes out of nowhere.
Hmm.
So it really just depends on the goal of the game itself.
So I know, like typically with these levels, obviously you have to design boundaries, like places the players can't go out of. Like within these confines. Like, how do you design a level that has boundaries, but it doesn't look so obvious that it's kind of drawing them out of the experience?
Uh, the that is a difficult one, and it's still when I tried something I still end up struggling with, um, because it is difficult to try and make it so that like the players feel like they have a say in what they're doing.
Right.
But in a way, players don't have too much of a say in what they're doing. You can't just do anything and everything in a game. There's only the limited choices provided by the game and the programming itself, and the level design is the same way. There's only so many paths that the player can take, and I can try and keep it open enough. I can try and like provide um, like archways and windows to look out of, and areas to make it look like the player can go this way. But experienced gamers like can know at a first glance, like, oh, there's a pile of rubble here. That means I can't go that way. Or like, oh, that looks slightly blocked. I'm going to check it, but most likely that is not a path I can go to. Some of
Right.
it's immediate. Other times it's just experience from playing a lot of games.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I was actually reading something about Shenmue. The game came out on Dreamcast. It was pretty much the precursor to the modern GTA's with this open world. And I read that it actually cost Sega a lot of money. Like, they lost a lot of money, and one of the reasons why is just like so detailed. Like, you could go and pretty much open any drawer, go into like any house. And I think while that's cool for its time, it's not really cost effective, and it's not necessarily adding anything to the gameplay. So, like, in terms of when you design a level, how do you find that balance of, okay, you have freedom, but I don't want to give you so much that it's distracting and kind of taken away from that guided experience that makes the game fun?
For more open world games like that, it is partially just like what you populate it all with. Um, my my capstone project, we tried to do something like Mario Odyssey, where it was like semi open world. You still had like a confined space, but you still could go anywhere in that space.
Right.
And we very quickly ran into the problem of what do we fill this whole space with and still keep the player going where we need to go. and I don't think we quite succeeded with it, but it definitely was good practice in that.
Was the project completed or it was left half done?
I would say it was completed. I mean, we only had like a little less than a year to do it, and with everybody doing classes and stuff, we were able to get a, I would say, a fully functional level that had different things for the player to do. At least one enemy, one slightly buggy enemy, and then a final boss that came in like very quickly, because we had our open area first, and then towards the end of the project we ended up making a more enclosed level for like a final boss encounter, because we realized we just couldn't keep doing the big open area.
Yeah. When I think about level design, it brings me back to playing the original Doom game, Doom 2. And I remember, one of the cheat codes is walk through walls. So when you put that on, you kind of see, oh, okay, this is mapped out this way, this is blocked off, this is mapped out this way. Like it gives you that full scope of what's kind of going on for the programmer, I feel.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like in terms of designing your levels, how do you like make the how do you use like different instruments to story tell? Like in Fallout, for example, sometimes they have documents on the ground, and that's the way of how they tell stories without having to go to a cinema or something. Like what are some of the storytelling elements that you use?
That is more of a collaborative effort between the level designers, the narrative team, and the artists, because I can plot out where things will be, but if I'm not able to make, like, say, a skeleton who wrote a message on the ground or something like that, I don't really have the skills for that, or I don't always even know what the full story is. So it's usually narrative helping, uh, like the narrative team helping guide us and tell us like what the story is and what they would want, and then level design will be setting it up and trying to like make a level that can showcase the story they want to tell, with the various beats throughout it, and then back over to the art team to just discuss like what kind of assets we need to properly discuss it and make this level come to life.
So Brian mentioned Doom earlier, and that was an incredibly atmospheric game. Like in terms of,
Classic.
yeah, it's definitely a classic. Like in terms of you making levels, what is your like collaboration process like in order to like really create this atmosphere? Like how closely do you work with the artists or the writers, and how much freedom do they give you?
Work very closely with all of them. Like I wouldn't be able to make the levels as well as I can if it wasn't for their help. But also, if I wasn't around making the levels, they wouldn't be able to showcase the work that they're doing. Um, like on projects before, pretty much just like almost weekly meetings discussing with artists like what assets we need for the level or want for the level, what's possible. Um, like if I build up a level and want this like giant skyscraper, I need to talk to the artist like what's feasible, if that's possible, or what we can get for that. And a lot of it is, especially for like indie and non-funded games, it's a lot of finding assets that you can use, various free assets, various assets that you can purchase online, and reusing those and making them how you like, repurposing them to make the level you want. A great example that I love, I could be wrong about it, but Inscription, love the game absolutely, and some of the models for like the character Leshy and stuff were not made from scratch, and were just like reused assets that the creator used. used to make such like a horrifying creature.
No, okay, interesting. So yeah, no, that's pretty interesting that you say like sometimes you look for like free assets and stuff you can reuse. Like you don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel. So I know like with the advent of AI, it's pretty much able to create a lot of these assets correct, and maybe you just might have to tweak it a little bit to get it to look like you want to.
Uh, there's various issues with AI itself. I personally have not used it, so I can only say so much about it. But from what I've seen, it's difficult to get what you want from AI.
Yeah.
It is easier to look and like kind of shop around. Like the Unreal Asset Store has so many assets. If you go to like Fab, I believe that's the term for it. They have tons and tons of assets that you can purchase and are free to use. And the tools in Unreal are, even if recently I've been working on a project and I needed to start decorating in a bathroom. And I found this whole bathroom scene available on the Unreal Marketplace. And I was able to use the tools in Unreal to kind of like cut that part and remake it how I needed in my
Oh,
level.
wow.
And I feel like with AI, it would be harder to do that because there's inconsistency in the assets from thing to thing, because the prompts always you can't get the same thing twice a lot of times, even when you put in the same prompt.
Right.
Yeah. No, that is definitely an interesting point. Like I've heard from people who use like AI for movies and things like it, special effects, like just the consistency from scene to scene. Like you have a character, having that same character appear from scene to scene, that's very difficult. Just maintaining that consistency, like just one asset that looks the same all the way throughout the whole movie. So you don't really see AI as is like right now as something that's really revolutionizing your workflow.
I would say that AI has the potential to help, but
Yeah.
I feel like its usefulness is overstated to a degree. The biggest issue um, I see with AI is that it's generative. AI is generative, is creating things from what's already existed. And while that can be said for anything that we make, like everything, all games have already been existed, all stories have already been told. It is like our own ways of making those things and reshaping them into new concepts, new games, new art pieces that makes things unique. And AI, it's only going to be able to do the same things over and over again from what's
Right.
been made. And if everyone's using AI at a certain point, nothing new or different is going to get made, and it's just going to be the
Yeah.
same stuff everywhere.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's what is going to happen because, just from guests that we've had on the show, a lot of people are heavily using AI already. So if it keeps, going down that path, I think what you're saying, exactly what you're saying is going to happen where, it's just not original anymore. It's not,
Mhm.
okay, you had an idea and then you drew it up and then you had it, filled out in Photoshop or whatever program. So that's, I don't know. Yeah, I think, what do you think about AI long term in terms of game programming?
Mm, it's hard to say. Like again, I don't use it. I'm not very involved with it, and so I try not to say anything negative of things that I am not experienced enough with. Um, but it feels like AI, especially with programming, is only going to take us so far because the people using it are not experienced and do not understand like what they're making and what they're trying to make with it. Like with programming, the whole term of vibe coding coming about is a bit scary because how I heard it was explained was that people are getting AI to write scripts for them, and then they are not experienced with programming at all, and so they do not know how to read the script. They don't know how to debug it. They just plug it into their game, and then when bugs do arise, they don't know how to fix it, so they go back to AI and ask it to write another script to fix this specific bug, and so they're
Wow.
slapping faulty code on top of faulty code. AI could be useful. It can be used as a basis. It can be used as, I think its strongest usage is mundane tasks, very simple things, finding patterns, recognizing like just the how things are over time. But making new things, it can only go so far, especially if the person using the AI does not have a fundamental understanding of what they're making.
So let's say as a junior developer, what would you say? And yeah, I know you mentioned you're not really using it, but if someone were to compare an AI chatbot like ChatGPT and then a junior developer, what are the skills that the junior developer would have that AI would not have? Of course, I understand you don't really use AI, but in theory, what do you think that would look like?
Um, I believe, would be able to quickly pump out code for like simple things. If you do not care about the quality or the work itself, you can quickly get a lot of things done and programmed with AI. A junior dev, there's this whole issue going on that I've been seeing among like junior and entry level positions where they need a lot of experience, where they're being treated as uh, mid or senior designers and programmers. And but the thing is, junior means I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm learning.
Yeah,
And so that's
exactly.
I would say that is the biggest and thing about junior programmers is that they have a higher capacity to learn from their mistakes, and be able to improve over time. The AI will, if you ask AI to make a script to move the player from left to right, it will be able to do that, but
Right.
it won't be able to look at the efficiency. It won't be able to look at like exactly how. It's just moving from left to right. A junior programmer will make the script. They will learn each individual step, all the functions, everything that's going on. They will know exactly what is causing, like if a bug appears, they'll be able to point at their script and know what might be causing it. Um, and they can also improve their script over time because they have the basic understanding. And if there's like an issue or if the script isn't as efficient, they can go in and edit it once they learn more to make it even better than it was.
So what would you say to companies that, their response to this is, okay, we're just going to pay X amount a month for this chatbot. We're going to get rid of our junior developers. We're just going to have our senior developers look over the code that the chatbot is creating. What do you think about that kind of scenario? Do you think that's happening, or do you think that may happen in the future?
There's definitely the possibility of that happening. There is there seems to be a almost hiring freeze among entry level and junior developers, and the biggest issue with that is that over time, all your senior devs are going to retire and go away.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is you have the senior devs reviewing the code. That's great. What happens when all the senior devs leave the industry or retire, and who's reviewing the code now? There's no one who knows how to, and you can't, it would be difficult to have the AI review its own code. And without having hired or trained any junior devs, it is you don't have anybody at all who already knows what they're doing, and it's just going to be like starting from scratch in a way.
Yeah, that's pretty much the issue that I see is that is eventually going to come to a point where you're not going to have anybody that understands the code that AI is producing, and you're going to be at the mercy of AI, hoping that you can beg it to create something that resembles what you want it to do. So yeah, like eventually you're going to have to hire juniors that can dive into the code base. They understand what's going on because the seniors at a certain point either they're going to hold the company for ransom and demand these huge wages, or they're going to get old and just retire, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were talking about all this in another episode, and that was kind of my theory that okay, the problem is yeah, short term you can get rid of the juniors and just have Chat GPT or Claude, code stuff up. But ultimately, long term, those seniors will retire. They will not be working for your company anymore. And if a lot of companies are all doing this at the same time, it's going to be hell to pay. You're going to have a really bad situation where all these companies, the seniors are leaving. There's no junior talent to come in. Or if they are to bring junior talent in, now there's no senior to explain the code base. I think, depending on how things go, it could get a bit messy.
Yeah. And I think like in response to that, there's with how many people who can't get into the industry right now and people who are getting like laid off and just can't find work and are getting replaced by AI, I believe there's going to be a huge influx of new indie companies, new studios that are making their games themselves instead of the big AAA. So there's going to be less and less popular AAA games, and it's going to be more of up to the indies now. Like we already saw with was it Hollow Knight sequel, just like how spectacular that went. Like they crashed Steam and I think all the other distributors.
Yeah, I know. One of the things that people didn't like about the new Call of Duty was there was even like AI generated art for like the call cards and things of that nature. And people like this is like cheap feeling. So when these big companies they start being like trying to find too much efficiency and using AI, it's going to remove a lot of the human feel, and that's going to leave the door wide open for indies to come in and really deliver that personalized experience. And they're going to have a huge array of talent out there because the big companies are laying them off. So I think there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, that's the other part. Is just the attention to detail, that little extra personal touch that game devs who actually truly care about what they're working on add to the game. Like games like Last of Us, the game is so beautiful and
Great game.
such amazing environmental storytelling, and you can just tell how much love and care went into all those different areas. And then
Yeah, the
recently,
storytelling, like you're saying, the storytelling is huge in that game.
so good, both narrative and spoken and environmental.
Yeah.
And then games like Hades 2 by Supergiant, that they just recently left early access and came to fully release. And even just for the people who played early access going into full release, there's so much extra love and little details that they were able to fully add to the game. Like it took a long time. It was a lot of effort on their part, but in the end, it's completely worth it. Like I was playing early access early this year and finally got back into the game now that it's all out. And I was just fangirling over all the little details, all the finalized art. It's so pretty, so good.
Awesome.
So like speaking of small details, what games have had like the coolest Easter eggs, like small details that you would miss if you're not paying attention?
Mm. Yeah, you stumped me there. There's so many little Easter eggs. I think some of the best games all have their own little Easter eggs, and like nods to different things.
What about a game like Borderlands?
I have not played Borderlands,
Oh,
so
you haven't? Okay. Awesome game.
I know people say it's an awesome game. I've seen the clips. I think Claptrap's hilarious, but I tried to play one of them and I just couldn't quite get into it. It's on my list to try again another day.
Or the sequel.
Yeah, or the sequel. Yeah, if I know, like with Skyrim, was it the lusty Argonian maid? It's just a little detail. It's just they have so many books in that whole game. No one reads any of them, and then they have that one book that's like just full of puns and little just dirty jokes, and it's absolutely fantastic because you wouldn't expect it. You're doing all these different quests, and
Yeah.
there's just this one little book on the shelf that you didn't read. You pick it up, and it's like one of the funniest things in the entire game.
Nice.
So, like, what genre? I mean, not what genre. What era of gaming did you start in? Because like me and Brian, I started in Nintendo. I think Brian, you started with Super Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Nintendo as well.
Like
Yeah.
the first Zelda, Rampage, stuff like that.
I started with the PlayStation 2. That was like my first main console. Though I didn't have a lot of games growing up for the most part. It was primarily Kingdom Hearts. Like
Okay.
that was the first, I think, biggest game I played. That wasn't like a Nickelodeon game or something like that.
Now, what about like a Final Fantasy VII or
Final Fantasy X?
VIII?
Final Fantasy X was my Final Fantasy game that I played growing
Okay.
up. Loved that thing. Still love it. I even bought it on the Switch once I saw that they had remastered it.
Yeah, for me, being a musician, I really love the score to really all of the Final Fantasy games. And, if we're talking older games, Castlevania, the score to Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, it's just incredible stuff.
Square Enix has such beautiful games, such beautiful music. Like everything, so much of what they do is always going to hold a special place in my heart. Like even thinking about it now, like I really only had the PlayStation 2 and like my DS growing up. It wasn't until like high school that I finally got a PS4, and I think one of the first games I got on that was Uncharted 4 and Square Enix's Life is Strange. So like one of the first games I got on my new console was
Uncharted. Those are awesome games. Yeah, especially
so
the second one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what games really stood out and like really made an impact? Like, wow, this game kind of blew my mind. It almost defined the genre for me.
Well, as I already mentioned, Kingdom Hearts, that was very influential as a kid. I was obsessed with the whole series. Later on, Skyrim, that was like, I think, one of my first open world games. It saddens me to say the game doesn't hold up as well today, especially with a lot of other open world games, like even Horizon Forbidden West and such, but it is such a classic. And I think one of the biggest influences was Undertale. Like I would not have gotten into games if it wasn't for that one, because I was obsessed with the game, the story, the whole community was so much fun, so engaging. That was a lot of my high school, and I remember in my senior year, I was talking with a friend about trying to figure out what I want to do, if I wanted to be a psychologist or like be a therapist or maybe open up my own business or something like that. And I don't know how we got onto the topic of Undertale and Toby Fox, and I was just like, if Toby Fox can make this amazing game himself, like with support from others, but still, like I can at least work on part of a game, and that's what got me started. Like I looked into the engine that was made, which was Game Maker Studio. So that's how I got started with Game Maker Studio before like Unity and Unreal,
right,
and just continued from there.
I think it's really amazing that like even you're in a younger generation than me and Brian, that like pixel art still hasn't went out of vogue. Like y'all's generation don't look at it as, oh, this is too old, this is ugly, I don't want it. Like
Right.
a lot of your generation loves like Undertale.
I've heard before that the games industry models the different art movements quite a bit, and just like, but like at a quicker pace, I believe. And we're seeing now, like in things like with Unreal, like I love the engine, but my biggest issue with Unreal is that all of the assets look the same.
Yeah.
All of the games, you can look at a trailer for a game and immediately know it was made in Unreal.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of discussion about around me and my peers about making more stylized games, making games that don't look the same as Call of Duty or hyper realistic. Because who wants to play a game that's so hyper realistic it looks like reality? I don't want to be in reality. I play games to escape reality.
Exactly.
Especially if it's a violent game like Call of Duty. Do you really want to see, you know, a human face up close and you shoot him in the head? That, to me, that's a bit over the top.
Yeah, and so then you have like this resurgence of more simple graphics, more things that are more stylized. I haven't played it, but I'm trying to remember the name. There was this music fighting game that was so pretty and stylized. Hopefully I can remember the name, but it's just that way of going. Kind of like with animation, with Into the Spider-Verse. Like that movie came out and was so different in style and look than anything else that so many studios afterwards are trying to emulate that feel and look.
Yeah, I agree with you about the old school games and the pixel art. They all had unique art styles because it was pretty much the artist to create the visuals that were on the screen versus like Unreal. You just bring in these assets, you have this
Right.
realistic lighting, and yeah, like unless you really massage the engine, everything looks very similar. So like how are you kind of using, like what techniques are you using to make your UE5 games not look like everybody else's? Like are you doing like cell shading or just any kind of technique, graphical techniques?
Um, I haven't been able to do a lot of that lately. Like I said, I've taken a step back um,
Mhm.
this past year to refocus on different things, and I've been had a greater focus on programming more than anything else. Um, I do plan on going back into Unreal when I can for a future project, uh, and yeah, like you said, shading and uh, Niagara. Yeah, that's the term. Niagara and just all the special effects in Unreal. Unreal is very powerful. It can do a lot of really fascinating things, but it takes. It seems like it's very easy to use, and it is easy to use at first, but it doesn't have as much customizability like Unity does right off the bat. And so you have to take an even deeper dive into it to really like change, just like make your own scripts, make your own shell shaders to make it look how you want it and not look like every other Unreal game.
Yeah, I kind of think we're at the point of diminishing returns in terms of just pure graphics. I've seen some shooting games that's almost indistinguishable from reality. So,
Yeah.
because we've kind of hit the ceiling of graphics, what do you think is like the next realm of like that's really going to push gameplay forward? Like for example, like maybe better AI or better physics. Like what would you hone in on?
Just for what
Yeah,
with games next.
yeah. Let's just say like okay, for games going forward, we can't focus on graphics. So what do you think a company should focus on in terms of their games, like physics, AI, just going forward?
I would say the thing that they should focus on for any game, even above graphics, like graphics are nice and it can be a bit, I do think companies focus on it a bit too much, but the core of a game is its gameplay. and what it can and what you can do with that. If companies aren't focusing enough on that or pushing that to new extents, you aren't really gonna see you aren't gonna get new games. I'm trying to think. There's so many different games out there that are trying to push the medium in what constitutes gameplay. Like Inscription had this whole ARG third person interaction where you had essentially like 3 different games in one, and then just the whole game outside of in the initial game. And then you have things like drawing the blank now. But then you have games like Hades 2, where it's all focused on making the movements and the fluidity of the actions and what the players are able to do as appealing and as like fun as possible. It goes back to this initial principle with the very first Mario game. Before they did the graphics, before they made the levels, it was either one of the first Mario games or might have been Mario 64 Sunshine, one of the early ones, where before anything else, they honed in on the gameplay, the mechanics, the jumping around, made sure that the controls were as great feeling as possible, and then they added everything else.
Yeah, I agree that gameplay, obviously, that's the core of a game. It's never going to get old. But yeah, I think like physics especially is going to enable you to do things that you weren't necessarily able to do in the past. Like, just say, for example, Battlefield, you're able to destroy walls, destroy houses. Like Donkey Kong, the new one on Switch 2, you can destroy like the whole level. I think that's really going to open up a whole new realm of interaction and gameplay possibilities.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a lot. But you also have to like think about like I get it just if your game needs that interaction. Not every game needs to be able to destroy giant buildings and stuff. And I feel like a lot of times when companies see these successful games, they try and just recreate that in their games, regardless of whether or not that is intentional. Like you wouldn't have the character be able to just destroy a giant building in like a narrative game or a visual novel or something like that, because that just wouldn't fit.
Yeah. I think, especially like in the realm of RPGs, that's where something like AI can shine. Is like
Right.
you have these, I guess, dynamically generated stories. Something or NPCs are much more dynamic. They're not just like walking signposts. Like they can actually interact with, like, or react to what your actions are and what's the choices you make. I think maybe that's another aspect that AI can actually enhance the game immersion.
Possibly, but I would say like just programmers as a whole have been able to do that pretty well. Like look at Skyrim. You would do something in a city, kill a guard, and if people around and saw you, immediately had those interactions or NPC interactions. I mean, yes, uh, I used to be an adventurer until I took an arrow to knee is an iconic line because it got repeated so much in that game. Um, but it's hard to say like what you'll get from AI writing the scripts and creating the new NPC interactions, because there's also like AI has been a term in game development, like character AI and NPC AI. That's been a term for years. It's just you need to be able to distinct between like intentionally programmed AI versus the generative AI.
Right.
Yeah, AI in most games now is deterministic. Like, okay, you have a very specific set of rules, and it responds in a certain way. I think with this generative AI, that's where you get the potential
Mhm.
addition to gameplay, in that it can actually interact, like it can perceive the world and what's happening and do something that's completely off script. I mean, you can't do it for every game, but
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting, like in an open world game like Skyrim, have these interactions that were not scripted, that is just only in your
Right.
instance
Right.
that happens. I think that could
Yeah.
be interesting.
It would be interesting to see that if they're able to pull it off, that'd be amazing to see. I don't have enough experience with programming AI in general to know or be able to say that. But yeah, I do agree with you on that.
So let me ask this: if you were to pick a game, a game studio to work with, who would you ideally work with?
I don't know. It's difficult to say because when I've been looking at studios, and right now I would work anywhere. if I
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I could, I just want to get the experience. I want to work with a team. I want to make something. I guess ideally, it'd be amazing to work for Square Enix. Like I said
Yeah.
before, like I love their games so much, and if I would be able to work on something like the next Final Fantasy 15 or something like that, that would be so amazing.
That'd be insane. Yeah.
But also, there's games like I wish I could apply to Supergiant. Their games are so amazing as well. Like I want to work. I want to work for the companies for all my favorite games. But a lot of
Right.
times those are all indie studios, and it's like harder to get into like all those tight knit groups.
Is it harder to get a job in an indie studio, you feel?
Um, I don't know. I'd say it's hard either way
In
because they
general.
both, yeah, in general, because they both have their own restrictions. Um, the biggest issue with indies right now is like you can join an indie studio, but it's not always going to be paying the bills immediately because a lot of them, especially the newer ones, they don't have the funds or the standing or like the support from an already made community. Um, and so that's the downside with indie. You can go indie yourself. Anyone can start making their own indie studio and making their own games. It's just being able to fund it. That's the issue. And then
Right.
with AAA, it's just difficult to just getting the door.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the thing with indie. Like, if you're gonna work on an indie game, it better be passion, because you might not be getting that regular paycheck.
Yeah.
Right.
So, have you like looked to join on just working with like a bunch of buddies, or just maybe a cool project, just hopping on there and just focusing on getting the experience versus getting paid, or is it like the bills like really do? So, hey, I need a job right now.
I mean, yeah, it's what I've been struggling with. Like after I graduated college, I tried to get a job, but um, I needed to pay rent. I needed to pay the bills, and so
Yeah.
my whole focus ended up just sticking with my part-time job and picking up hours as much as I could. And for like almost an entire year or so, I wasn't doing any game dev stuff and became very rusty. And now at this point, I'm in a position where I'm able to like kind of take a step back a bit more. And I am still trying to renew my skills, but I think some people tend to just go all in on a new project to practice when that might not always be the case. I am a very big advocate of game jams and using those to quickly learn what you want to do because you have a limited amount of time to make a game and you can use those to like focus on something specific. At the beginning of this year, I did like 3 or 4 game jams back to back to just really get back into game dev as a whole. I did one where I was just a general one to refamiliarize myself with stuff. I did another one where I specifically used Godot because I wanted to start learning that engine. Another one was just pixel art because I had never touched that before in my life and seemed like a
Right.
fun opportunity to try that. And then the last one was just solely programming and getting back into that. I am currently working on a project with some friends that I've made at a GDC and we're all trying to get into the industry. We're all new devs, and we're all just in our spare time just working on this little passion project, mainly to just get experience and help each other out. And honestly, it's amazing because we have like somewhat of a company structure in a way, and we're just trying to treat it like if we were working, so that when we are in that environment, when we do get the jobs, and I'm saying we will eventually, we have the experience and we already have a step up than if we hadn't worked together.
So in terms of programming, whereabouts are your passions? Where do your passions lie in terms of programming in general, not just games, but say C++ or C#?
Right now, I've been diving deep into C#, and I do plan on learning C++ soon as well. Like once I have the time to add that to my list.
Yeah.
But they're a lot of fun to mess with, and just like even diving deep into what I can do with the different engines. Since I have so much experience with level design, I've been focusing more on technical design so that I can actually help make the tools for people to make the games. Because I can write a script, but I enjoy most making stuff that's like kind of physical and present in the game. Like I still want to touch the engine, including with the programming. So it's not just the programming for me.
Okay.
So yeah, for my final question is like, would you be satisfied, let's just say, doing web development as your day job and game development as a side project, or is like game development, is that like the go-to job? Like you absolutely have to get a job as a game developer?
If you'd asked me that maybe a year or so ago, I would have said it was a must. But at this point, it is a dream, and I would like to keep working towards it. But I already am trying to get into just any aspect of the tech industry, regardless of game dev. And if I could do a job as web dev and get paid to do that and be able to then focus my time on game dev stuff afterwards, I would be completely happy with that. But the end goal would still be to eventually like work at a full studio and get paid for what I'm doing.
Right. I mean, well, web dev versus game making, web dev is way, way easier than working on a game. I know I went to a coding boot camp years ago, and the first project was you had to build a tic-tac-toe, like a digital tic-tac-toe. And the amount of if-else statements, and I don't even remember, it was so confusing. And then I did a web dev project right after that. I was like, oh, wow, why would people spend time programming games? But I think it comes down to the passion of it all. You love games, you want to create them, you'll go through the pain it takes in learning game programming, because it is very different from web dev.
Yes, definitely. One of the things that we were working on for project is we just had this rotating pillar that rotates with the player, and I was bashing my head against the wall for the longest time trying to get that to work properly. Because you have to worry about like so many different things in like game dev with the linear vectors and angles, and just getting what you want is definitely a lot harder than with web dev. But in the end, once you actually do accomplish it, it's so satisfying.
Absolutely. We're at the top of the hour. Before we get out of here, do you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts, and where can they find you at?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up at Matthew Knight. I'm also on Itch. I believe the username is Aster the Dev. But you can also find that page through my LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yeah, we definitely appreciate you for coming on, and we might have to bring you back sometime.
I appreciate it. It was really fun talking with you. I I always like talking with people about this stuff because I care so deeply, and it's fun chatting with other people who also like obviously care so deeply.
Yeah, I could tell, you know, the passion comes through the screen. I could tell you're really passionate about it. And I hope that you're able to get an opportunity really soon. I know, like me and Kev were talking about, the market right now is, I've never seen it this bad. I'm 38. I've never seen a job market like this. So, you know, don't take it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Don't take it personal, because it's not you. It's the industry right now.
Yeah, it took me a bit to learn that, but yeah.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate you, and we'd like to thank everybody for